Welcome to the final session. I'm sure it's the one you've all been waiting for. My name is Andrew Maat, as Epi just introduced. I'm VP International here at Testbirds for over 7.5 years. By the way, Testbirds was launched in 2011, so we've been at the game for quite some time now. And today I will be talking about how to optimize customer journeys using custom crowds. So a great thanks to Ran and to Jeremy, because they both went into some really interesting elements of crowd testing. Ran introduced crowd testing, and Jeremy explained how Unguess looks at crowd testing. And you see that every crowd testing company has a different take, and they have one thing that they really specialize in. If you ask me what is it that Testbirds specializes in, it's taking those really bespoke, those really critical, those really difficult, complex client use cases, and using the power of the crowd, the power of our own crowd, to help our clients get a solution or get an answer to their questions. Then we will swiftly move on. And I am struggling. Yes, there we go. So, as you're all joining this webinar organized by Crowdsourcing Week, I'm going to say that you understand the power of crowd testing, of crowdsourcing at least. And if you don't, please hit me up. More than happy to discuss that. Now, what about crowd testing? Again, as I said, I know that Ran just went through it quite extensively, so I think at this point everyone should understand what crowd testing is, because the principle doesn't vary much whether you're one provider of crowd testing services or whether you're the other. Now, the products that crowd testing companies test can also vary. At the Testbirds case, basically anything with a digital component, be it an app all the way to a connected car or motorbike, we can test. So today, though, I'm not going to tell you about how our crowd is one of the largest, etc., because at the end of the day, we know, and I think our clients also know, that it's not about the size of the crowd, but it's really about the quality and what you're able to do with that crowd that really matters. So what I'd rather talk to you about is about some really specific types of testers and their ability to work on some of the most complex client use cases. So our crowd testers are highly engaged. Among our crowd testers are your brand champions, as well as real users with an existing interest in your products. As existing users of your products, our crowd testers know exactly what they want from your products. Now, in some cases, that's what you're looking for. But in other cases, our clients are looking for exactly the opposite. They might be looking for clients that aren't engaged with their brand yet, and therefore are completely new to their propositions. Our crowd testers are highly experienced. Similar to the previous category, our clients can choose between super experienced testers, so testers that we have been working with for years, that have been part of our crowd for years, that have done hundreds of tests, or they can choose for testers that have just joined our platform and maybe aren't as experienced yet. Both, of course, can bring their own skill set and experience to the table, which is exactly what our clients would be looking for. Our crowd testers are highly enthusiastic, and I will show you some great examples of that on the next few slides. But basically, what drives our testers to come sign up to the platform is they are typically very engaged and very enthusiastic about seeing new developments, new apps. And we've seen some great examples of how people will actually go at length to make sure they can fulfill and help the clients in further developing their products. Especially when it comes to custom crowds, that is a really, really important factor, the enthusiasm of our crowd. Because sometimes you just need very special and dedicated group of testers. This could be because our clients' target audience is not the ordinary one, or because our client wants to be able to keep coming back to the same testers for various reasons, right? It could be that you want the same testers to do a certain test over a period of time. It could be the case that you want them to partake in a large scale test that lasts over a year, where on a regular basis you want to ask them certain questions about your product or about your services. So some of our clients might even want to build their own crowd testing community. But imagine this, right? They would need to get the software, they would need to hire the people, they would need to look for testers, they would need to keep those testers engaged, they would need to pay those testers. So in those cases, again, they typically come to us because we're the experts. We have done this on a large scale with multiple large clients. So that's where they typically end up coming, because we have a solution for that. So how do we do it? First, we start with identifying the specific custom target groups. So projects with specific customer target groups are discussed, and the required testers are determined together with the client. Those clients can choose from 65 different criteria, and based on that, we will do a pre-selection using our own crowd, our own platform first. It's going to come as no surprise that as Testbirds, we call this platform the Nest. Then next, sourcing and recruitment. Once we've identified those custom target groups, we will look for the right demographics directly on our platform and usually find the majority of our testers already. In the case that we can't find them because they are really specific, and suppose that's what this presentation is all about, then we do some specific recruitment. Recruitment we do via different channels. It could be anything from social media right down to calling people and finding those right demographics on, for example, fora and places where we know those people congregate typically. And then finally, we onboard those testers and we train them. Similar to what you've heard from the previous speakers, we also have a really high quality standard where we vet our testers. We first get them to do a test, and after they do the test, we give them feedback. The test helps us to understand how well they are at executing a test, but it also helps us to see the level of communication and what type of feedback they typically give. Okay, so let's look at a very exciting customer journey test that we've done for one of our clients. And this client is BMW Motorrad. Their relevant target group could not be recruited within our existing crowd. Well, that's what we thought initially, because we simply didn't have the criteria. Do you own a motorbike? And if so, is it a BMW motorbike, right? So first thing we did is we discussed with them how we could build a dedicated crowd for them. And then we recruited and onboarded this specific target group. We went on our own platform and we sent a bunch of surveys, and it turned out that we actually had quite a few testers who own BMW motorbikes all over the globe, because the client specifically wanted to see this in more than 40 countries. In addition to that, we did some email campaigns. We went to some Facebook groups, we went to some trade shows, we did some very specific campaigns with influencers, and we managed to grow a crowd of more than 600 testers all over the globe, as mentioned before, in more than 40 countries, which own a BMW motorbike and are connected to this motorbike using an app, the BMW app. So these crowd testers participated in customer journey tests all over the globe in real world conditions. And when we say crowd testing with BMW Motorrad, we actually are talking about real people getting on their motorbikes, using the connectivity app and giving feedback. Whilst doing this, of course, they enjoyed themselves. You know, they drive all over the country and are so keen to provide that feedback and give feedback on the errors, but also really important on the issues regarding the usability of the app, which in the case of a motorbike, you can imagine is quite crucial. So enhancing the user experience whilst looking for errors. One of these stories that I've heard from one of these testers, and I hear a lot of stories from more than the 1 million testers that we have across the globe. But one of the stories that really stuck with me is one of a crowd tester from Australia. Let's call him Jeff. And Jeff wanted to help BMW Motorrad to evaluate and test new digital prototypes. To do that, of course, not only for that, but he went out for a ride on his R1250 GS, for those of you who are into motorbikes, for more than 14,000 kilometers across Australia. That's pretty much across half of Australia. That's 8,700 miles. It took him 35 days to conduct that, to finish that journey, which is an average of 400 kilometers a day. Now, I think that's really, really impressive, and I think it shows perfectly how extensive new products at BMW Motorrad get tested and how dedicated the Testbirds testers are. On the next slide, we will look at this case that brings, and I'm sure you're actually wondering, what does BMW Motorrad have in common with this client here, Dior? Because on the one hand, we're looking at motorbikes, and on the other hand, we're looking at haute couture. Well, what they have in common, of course, is quality, right? So in this case, this client, which is a global player and ships really nice, and you can see the example there, a handbag of more than 3,000 euros. That's only one of their products. Of course, their range goes way higher, but they ship these to clients all across the globe. And you can imagine if you live in, for example, in Dubai, and you live in a very exclusive apartment complex, and you order a lovely handbag from Dior, you kind of want it hand delivered at your door. And you don't want it thrown in front of your door in the hallway so everyone can see, oh, there's a nice box. That looks expensive. Maybe I should have a little look and see what's in it. Of course, the big challenge here was getting testers that have enough cash, enough credit on their credit cards to order these products, have them shipped to their address, then document this whole process to then ship back the product whilst giving feedback on how that whole process was. In this process, we also included the unboxing because it's a really important part of the customer journey, as you can imagine. If you buy a product from Dior, it needs to look in a certain way. You want the communication between Dior, but also the logistics supplier to be in a certain way, because you're not buying from Amazon where you think it's totally acceptable for them to throw it at your in front of your door and just ring the door and then walk away, which is what happens with me here in Amsterdam regularly. And what we saw here is that some really crazy examples again came up, and the client, of course, was really happy with the feedback they received. Because if you're a customer in Paris and you have to travel 30 minutes on the tube to return your parcel, that might be a bit difficult, and it might mean that the next time you're not going to be so keen to order this directly from Dior. You might look for alternatives. But also here we saw the same kind of dedication that we witnessed from a BMW crowd. Testers were going above and beyond in the test, and we're making movies, we're making films, sending them to us, although we didn't even require them to do that. We didn't ask them to do it, but they still did it. And that's what it takes to service and to help those clients that want these really, really specific demographics, and because it just matches their product. So, coming to a conclusion, because I'm trying to catch up a bit on the lost time, Epi, don't worry. I hope you had a great show of how crowd testing can work for even the most luxurious companies, and how Testbirds can cater for very, very specific needs by building dedicated tester teams for these very specific clients. Of course, this doesn't mean that we can't help other clients like the ones you've heard from my predecessors, from the people talking before me. We still cater for more than 400 clients, and with their very regular requirements. So I would like to thank you again. All your questions right at the Q&A. My name is Andrew Maat, and thanks for listening.